With winter right around the corner, it's important for the athletes, the coaches, as well as the athletic trainers to take into account Merrimack's cold weather policy. This cold weather policy looks at the temperature outside as well as the wind chill temperature. The wind chill temperature is what it feels like outside when the wind is blowing on your skin. With that said, when the wind chill temperature is between 30 and 25 degrees Fahrenheit, the total maximum exposure that the athlete and the coaches are allowed to be outside is 2 hours. When the temperature drops between 25 and 15 degrees Fahrenheit, the total maximum exposure is then only 80 minutes. Within those 80 minutes, it's important that the coaches and the athletes go indoors to rewarm their body every 20 minutes for at least 15 minutes before returning outside. So when the temperature drops between 15 and 5 degrees, the total maximum exposure is then only 1 hour. Within that 1 hour, the coaches and the athletes still need to return inside to rewarm their bodies every 20 minutes of participation for at least 20 minutes of rewarming before returning outside. If at any point the temperature should drop below 5 degrees Fahrenheit, practice should then be canceled. It's important for the athletic trainer to communicate with the coaching staff prior to practice about participation, whether they're going to have it or not in the time frames of rewarming and going back inside. It's important that the temperature is also monitored throughout practice, so if it were to change at any point, the time spent outside will also be different. These are the protocols for practice. For games, cold weather policy is different. When the temperature is between 15 and 5 degrees during a game, then the game should be modified in terms of the introduction should be shortened in the beginning, and halftime should also be lengthened as well as moved indoors for everyone's body to be rewarmed. If the temperature is to drop below 5 degrees, then the match should then be canceled. This cancellation needs to happen with the athletic trainer communicating with both home and away coaches, as well as the game administrator and the team officials. Athletes need to pay attention to the clothing that they are wearing when they are outside participating in practice in the cold weather. They should have multiple layers on, not just one or two, but multiple, so this leaves room for them to either put more on or take some off depending on what they're doing in practice. With that said, there should be no skin showing at any point, so no tank tops or no shorts should be worn during the cold in practice. The first layer that the athlete should have on should be made of a material that keeps sweat and moisture away from the body. These are things like Under Armour or Nike Dri-Fit. The other layers should act as insulators to trap in the heat as well as block away the wind. Some examples of these are long pants spandex, nylon shell, windbreaker pants, or sweatpants, long sleeves, sweatshirts, coats, as well as things like gloves, hats, and ear protections. Some athletes may choose to wear a face protection to keep their face cold from the wind. The medical conditions that the athletic trainer needs to be concerned of when talking about cold weather are things like frostnip, frostbite, as well as hypothermia. These can all develop from being exposed to the cold weather for long periods of time. Some of the precautions that you should follow are things like following the cold weather policy that was just mentioned, as well as having everyone wear appropriate clothing, as well as equipment, which was also just mentioned. These can all help avoid any of these medical conditions. It's also important that the athlete checks themselves often for any cold or wet areas that they can find on their body or on their clothing. These are important because being wet and cold is a dangerous situation, and to prevent that, you can prevent these injuries.